Welcome in, Bills Mafia. Welcome back to the Go Bills podcast. I am your host and founder of the Go Bills podcast, Brett. Glad to be with you on the last day of the 2022 year. Well, it has been by far the best year for the Go Bills podcast, and we couldn't have done it without all of you. We wish each and every one of you had a wonderful Christmas, and we wish you a safe, happy, and prosperous new year. The number one seed is on the line Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals, and we will discuss this Week 17 matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. The game will be played on Monday, January 2nd, 2023 at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Paycor Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are on the analysts for the game on ESPN. This will be the 33rd matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bills are leading the series 17-15. In today's episode, we will discuss the key matchups, the keys to the game, and highlight how the Bills can come away with a win on Monday night. The last time these two teams played, it was September of 2019, with the Bills winning 21-17. Josh Allen was 23 of 36 for 241 yards and an interception in that game. The leading rusher was Frank the Tank Gore with 76 yards on 14 carries. Dawson Knox was the leading receiver with 67 yards and a touchdown. Trey White had 2 interceptions. Now, going back to this time, but before we go back to this time, I want to bring up that wonderful graphic that you saw before we started the podcast. That graphic where you saw Kyle Williams holding his kids and that moment and how much it meant. This is a game where the two teams, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Buffalo Bills, they've had some playoff implications over the last few years. And the Cincinnati Bengals helped the Buffalo Bills in 2017 get to the playoffs on a 4th and 12 play where Andy Dalton threw a pass to Tyler Boyd, and that pass went for a touchdown, and the Bengals were playing the Ravens at the time. That allowed the Bills to go to the playoffs, and it broke the drought. So if you remember back to that game, that's something that I'll always remember as being a Buffalo Bills fan, and I hope you guys remember that game. Now, this time around, the Bills have bigger playoff implications, and in particular, the number one seed on the line. The Bills are 12-3 in this matchup and hold the reins to the number one seed. The Bills can clinch with a win over the Cincinnati Bengals and a Kansas City loss to the Denver Broncos. The Bengals are 11-4. They started the year a little bit slow. They started the year off at 2-3, and mostly that was due to Joe Burrow's procedure in the preseason. Let's highlight the key matchups for this game. And while we're highlighting the key matchups for the game, there's a lot of key matchups for the game because there are a ton of players that you could talk about in this game. In particular, the first one is Joe Burrow, the former LSU quarterback and number one pick in the 2020 draft, has started 41 games for the Bengals. They are 23-17-1 in those games. He is one of the MVP candidates by far. He is completing 69% of his passes overall this season, and he is going for over 280 passing yards per game. He is doing this with 3 excellent receivers in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, as well as Tyler Boyd. He has 34 touchdowns this season. He gets the ball out very, very fast compared to last week's quarterback in Justin Fields, who was the slowest in the NFL.
I apologize for that delay. We had an issue with our headphones. Give me 1 second. I'm going to switch over. Actually, I'm going to stay on here. Let's see if the sound is going through. I hope the sound is going through. Yes, it is. It's going through the MacBook, which is great. So I wanted to make sure that was going through. So let's go back to what I was saying. Joe Burrow is getting the ball out in an incredible fast speed. He is the second fastest in the NFL behind Tom Brady, getting the ball out in 2.48 seconds, compared to last week's quarterback in Justin Fields, who was holding on to the ball a lot, which allowed Buffalo to have some sacks in the game. This is going to be a game where I don't think there's going to be a ton of sacks for the Bills, but what's going to be important is getting pressure with our front four. If Buffalo is able to get pressure with the front four, it's going to allow for Buffalo to have more success on the back end and have plays where we have guys like Trey White, Dane Jackson, as well as Jordan Poyer, where they're able to get past breakups. He doesn't have a ton of depth on his throws. He's averaging 7.4 yards downfield, which is bottom 5 in the NFL. Most of his throws are between 5 and 15 yards down the field. He's in the bottom half of the NFL and throws over 20 yards. He strives in the West Coast offense that Zach Taylor runs with the Cincinnati Bengals. And in that West Coast offense, you can see where the Bengals are trying to have Joe Burrow see it and get rid of the ball as fast as possible. When under pressure, he is completing 54% of his passes, and he is very good against the blitz. So if I'm Leslie Frazier, I'm not blitzing Joe Burrow in this game. You're going to have to get to him with your front four and have 7 in coverage. Another key matchup is going to be the dynamic duo of T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Jamar Chase going up against the cornerbacks for the Bills in Dane Jackson, as well as Kyer Elam and Trey White, as well as Taron Johnson. Now, in this matchup, you have 3 excellent receivers who are all over 700 yards, as well as Trenton Irwin, who is another receiver to keep your eyes on, who's an electric receiver that they brought in, and he's pretty much the 4th receiver for them, and is doing a really good job. Let's start with Jamar Chase, who is an explosive receiver and the number 1 receiver for them, who has been injured over the last few weeks, but is coming to his own again. He is second on the team in yards this season behind T. Higgins, who is the only one over 1,000 yards this season. T. Higgins is a big body receiver, much like Gabe Davis, who strives in contested situations, which is unlike Gabe Davis. Tyler Boyd is the crafty slot receiver who's excellent over the middle, as you remember in the game where the Bills were able to go to the playoffs in 2017. He caught that pass over the middle, and the rest is history. The Bills go to the playoffs. They play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunately, we lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars 10-3, but Buffalo was able to break the drought, which was incredible and allowed for Buffalo to get guys like Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds, and Jordan Poyer. I'm sorry, we didn't get Jordan Poyer that year. We had him before. We got guys like that and Ed Oliver as well, where we were able to get those players, and it made a big difference. And you can see what Brandon Beane as well as Sean McDermott have built for the Buffalo Bills. The 3 prolific pass catchers have caught 205 receptions for 2,693 yards this season and 20 touchdowns. The biggest key for the Bills in this game is going to be how they execute a game plan to slow them down. And that may be how the Bills end up winning this game, and it could determine the outcome in this game and potentially the number 1 seed in the AFC. There was an article that was written by Syracuse.com, and they brought it up. I'm going to pull it up real quick about Tyler Boyd, saying he had some strong words to say about Buffalo in their secondary. And I want to read this article to Bills Mafia. And he didn't have the nicest words to say about Buffalo, but when he was asked about what does he think about the Bills offense, he said it's kind of basic. They don't do too much disguising. It's kind of straightforward. They don't do all the trickery things that we've seen from other teams and a lot of other defenses. He says it's pretty much basic. So some strong words from Tyler Boyd. He also said that sometimes they give false keys and start one way, then go another way. So some strong words from him, and they said that they mostly play zone coverage, and their different responsibilities in zone. So some strong words from him, as well as a few other players on the Bengals as well. So there could be some something said about that come Monday night, and I don't expect the Bills to retaliate at this point. Let's talk about the two running backs for the Bengals in Joe Mixon as well as in Samaje Perine. I might have said his name wrong, so just bear with me. The Bengals are using their running backs mostly as pass catchers in overall this season. They are third in the NFL with 97 receptions as a tandem. The biggest difference over the past few years with Joe Burrow, who has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL over the last few years, is he's now starting to trust his playmakers to make plays for him. And when he does that, he's getting the ball out in an incredibly fast time, mostly to the running backs as well, where he's dumping passes to the running backs and getting the ball out much quicker. As for the Bengals rushing, they are 27th in the NFL in rushing yards, 28th in carries. So you're not going to see too much from them, but I will say these running backs are incredible. They're very, especially Joe Mixon, he's a very crafty veteran running back where he's able to do almost anything with the ball. I remember a few weeks ago where he had over 5 touchdowns, which led me to a fantasy win a few weeks ago. And he's done an incredible job this season, but they're just not having enough carries this year. Hayden Hurst is an excellent tight end for the Bengals. He is a great tight end who's a reliable target for Joe Burrow. He previously played for the Atlanta Falcons and came back. He's on an expiring contract, but I do expect him to be a focal point for the Bengals for years to come. Now let's shift over to the Bengals defense, and a ton of playmakers for the Bengals on defense. Defensive tackle DJ Reader is a great guy who is also incredible at staying in his gaps. Trey Hendrickson, another player who is coming off of a broken wrist and is trying to play with a broken wrist, is another guy who is making an impact for the Bengals as well. Linebacker Logan Wilson as well as Jermaine Pratt are two excellent linebackers at 250 pounds who are able to go over the almost at any point on the field and make a big impact. If you think of the Buffalo Bills with Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, these are two excellent linebackers for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the area for the Bengals that I would say that they struggle with is their cornerbacks. Eli Apple, who was previously with the Giants, is another player who was with the Giants, and he has been bouncing around the NFL, and he just makes an impact on each team that he goes to, but he's not the best cornerback in the NFL, don't get me wrong. And his counterpart, Cam Taylor-Britt, who is a rookie, are the two areas where I could see the Bills exploiting. Now, they can exploit him with their two perimeter wide receivers and Gabe Davis as well as Stephon Diggs. However, over the middle with their cornerbacks, they have a great one in Mike Hilton, who was previously with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to watch out for the blitz with Mike Hilton. Their safeties, two excellent safeties, probably by far two of the best in the NFL. I would put them right behind Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, Jesse Bates, and Von Bell. Bell is a ball hawk doing excellent things this year, making an impact, and Jesse Bates is playing on the franchise tag, and you know exactly what they bring to their teams. Let's go to the keys to the game for the Buffalo Bills, how they can win this game. Starting with the Bills on offense, execution. That's the biggest thing for me is execution. Josh Allen over the past few weeks has not done a good job of his execution. It needs to do a better job of executing the plays, getting the ball to their playmakers. Now that's going to start with Stephon Diggs in this game. And if the Bills are able to get the ball to Stephon Diggs and their outside perimeter receivers, they're going to have success in this game. So that's my number one focal point for the Bills on offense in this week is get the ball to your playmakers and have them make big plays in this game. Second is going to be Josh not taking as many deep shots down the field and making sure that what he's doing is taking the deep shots when it's there. However, when you have a shot where you can take what the defense gives you, take that shot. Third is no turnovers in this game. If you look back at the last few weeks, Buffalo has done a better job. But last week against the Bears, Josh Allen did have the 2 turnovers. He did have one turnover over the last 6 games. But I do want to see Josh Allen doing a better job of keeping the ball on the Bills side and getting the ball down the field. Or if it doesn't go down the field, have it end in a kick, whether it's a touchdown, a field goal, or a punt. Let that happen. Keys for the defense. First of all, you got to be able to stop the 3 excellent wide receivers for the Cincinnati Bengals. Got to be able to stop each and every one of them. And I think that's going to mean press coverage with a little bit of zone coverage over the middle where you're disguising coverage each and every play. Second is in the run game, you got to make sure that you're maintaining your gap in the game. Third is the penalties. You cannot have a lot of penalties in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So you got to eliminate the penalties, and that not only does that go for the defense, but also the offense. Let's go over the special teams for both teams, and we'll talk about the special teams where I want to start with the kickers for both teams. 2 excellent kickers in the NFL, and Evan McPherson, who, as you remember, last year was a rookie and did an amazing job in the playoffs for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had a ton of game-winning kicks, as well as Tyler Bass for the Bills, another excellent kicker for the Bills who has done an excellent job this year. And these guys don't get as much credit as they deserve. For the Bills, with their punter in Sam Martin, who has done an excellent job over the last few weeks in making sure that he's getting the ball into the opponent's territory. He's done a great job of pinning them inside the 20-yard line, making sure that he's doing that. The Bengals, I'm going to try and pull up their punter. I'm trying to remember what his name is. Their punter is, bear with me 1 second. I've got it here. Drew Chrisman, who is averaging 3.9 yards or 3.9 hang time per punt. And he is by far the lowest in the NFL. Normally you see a guy who has an average of about 4.3, 4.4 for his average, and he is averaging very low. So I do expect for Nyheim Hines to have some good carries with the punts in this game. As for score predictions for the game, I have the Bills winning this game at a score of 31-20 in favor of the Buffalo Bills, getting that number 1 seed where the Denver Broncos end up beating the Kansas City Chiefs this week with their new head coach. And like I said, the Bills will win. I think that there's going to be a ton of plays. This is a great game for Monday Night Football. Looking forward to it on Monday night. Looking forward to probably the best game and by far the biggest challenge for the Bills by far this season. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the playoffs. Looking forward to the new year, new chapter for the Bills where we have the playoffs coming up. And it's going to be a great game. So let's get our popcorn ready. Enjoy the game. And let's get some Bills football in and lock down the number 1 seed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all social media platforms. We are on 5 different social media platforms. You can find them all on our ticker at the bottom of the screen. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter, as well as our new website, gobillspodcast.com. Don't forget to tune in later this week on Monday, actually next week, Monday, for our pregame show. That'll be with Chill Bills and the Metaverse. That'll be starting at 7:15 Eastern Standard Time. We'll be going live before the game, talking about the inactives as well as some keys to the game, key matchups, and a few different things as well. Talk about the highs and lows from the 2022 season and the expectations going into the playoffs for the Bills. As well as we will have a halftime show immediately following the conclusion of the first half of the Buffalo Bills game against the Cincinnati Bengals. And then on Tuesday, we will have our post-game show. That'll be starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time as well. So don't forget to keep your eyes on the GoBillsPodcast.com for all our latest social media updates and updates on the Buffalo Bills. You can also find all of our upcoming shows and when we will be going live and collaborating with different people such as the Nickel City Mafia, Red, White, and Bills, Chill Still Bills, and all other platforms that we will be on. This has been the Go Bills Podcast, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Go Bills Podcast. As always, go Bills, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you in Bills Mafia and around the NFL. Be safe, and don't drink and drive. Like I said, this has been the Go Bills Podcast, and we will see you next time.